technically in a super worst case situation, we could conceivably deorbit even with one pod. It would have been a bit of a wobbly trip, but it's technically possible. So I think we'd be fine from a crew safety standpoint in all scenarios.
Thank you.
The next question is from Alan Boyle of NBC News. Your line is open.
Thank you. I just had a couple of follow-up questions, which you probably already addressed, but just to make sure, when would you say that this thruster pod problem is fully resolved? Once you have the thrusters enabled, is that the end, and then you can kind of go to certifying that things are going to be safe for approaching the space station, or are there other things that need to be done to assure yourselves that the thruster pod problem is actually resolved? And then I suppose the other question would be, is there only one opportunity a day? What's the timing for making that decision to clear the Dragon to make that approach? Thank you.
Sure. So I'll just maybe address the first part of that question. We hope to have the thrusters enabled on pods 2 and 3 very soon, literally within maybe less than an hour, unless there's some challenge we encounter. So that's all looking quite good, and we're not aware of any other issues with the vehicle. However, as mentioned earlier, we definitely want to take a very careful look at the data, go over it with NASA, and make sure everyone's super comfortable before we take the next step towards approaching the space station.
And so in terms of that decision process, is there just one time a day when you're able to make that approach? Are there multiple times? And just how do you arrive at that decision?
Well, we approach the space station in stages, so we sort of gradually step closer and closer towards the space station. It's actually possible for us to go both with the space station in the course of really several hours, or less than a day, certainly. In fact, that was our original plan. Yeah, I mean, I think it's if once things are once we're sure things are well understood, and NASA's comfortable and everything, then it could be a fairly rapid series of burns to get to the space station, as Mike Sofrini was alluding to.
And Mike can add some more, but I think what the teams will do is they'll start planning for a tentative birth time, and then they'll start setting up phasing maneuvers and those kind of things that could even occur as early as today to protect options. And what they'll do is they'll pick whatever they think is the earliest date, and then they'll start a burning plan to go do that to protect for that date. And then if something occurs during that activity, they can default off of that and delay to a later day if they need to. But the teams will work a way to be as flexible as they can. I think the other thing that'll be really good is all these burns that they're going to have to be doing and the maneuvers for antenna pointing and all that stuff. That will all add direct confidence that we understand what's going on with the propellant system, what's happening with the thrusters. So the normal activities that are occurring with Dragon will actually build the team's confidence that this is ready to come inside the approach envelope to station.
Thanks.
Next question is from Bill Hennigan of the Los Angeles Times. Your line is open.
Thank you. Two questions. First, would SpaceX be allowed to dock with only the two thruster pods up? I think that was addressed earlier. Just wanted to make sure of that. And then second, Elon, can you describe how concerned you are about the thruster issue? Do you see this as teething pains, or is this a major concern going forward?
I don't think it's a major concern. This is the first time we've seen any issue. We've flown Dragon on 3 previous missions, 2 of which docked or both with the space station. So this is the 4th Dragon mission. It's the first time we've seen this issue. So I think it's an anomaly, and I think like I said, I think it's looking like we're going to be back on track here. So I think it was essentially a glitch of some kind, and not a serious thing if we're able to come back online.
And we require 3 or 4 of the pods to be operational to come within the ellipsoid around station and attempt to berth.
Next question is from Keith Cowing of NASAWatch.com. Your line is open.
Yeah, question for Elon. I would assume that you had a preset way to test the thrusters under nominal conditions, and since that's not happening, and you've got the arrays out, are you going to go through that process? Are you going to do more pressure hammering? Do you have something special? And how much will this eat into your prop margin? And do you have any concerns there?
No, I think it's. No, I feel pretty good about the thrusters on pods 1 and 4. We'll know very soon whether the thrusters on pods 2 and 3 are good. They likely are because the nature of the issue is just on the pressurization of the oxidizer tanks of initially of pods 2, 3, and 4, and now that those pressures are good, I think the thrusters are all going to operate nominally. But just in the course of maintaining an active attitude hold, doing things like TDRS pointing and then doing the various perigee adjustments, or raising the perigee and adjusting the orbit, we'll see that the thrusters all fire hundreds of times, and we'll take a look at that and make sure that they're operating as they should.
And also, are you looking at any reorientation of the spacecraft just to get a little more heating in case this was indeed an issue of lines freezing up?
Yeah, we at one point we were a little concerned, like maybe it was a frozen line thing. The temperatures look good in the. I mean, they're all like averaging around 70 F in the on the oxidizer tank. So that's also a possibility. I think it's probably not the most likely possibility, but it is a possibility that there was a bit of frozen oxidizer in the line somehow, and that it gradually warmed up and then allowed the liquid to flow. So I wouldn't say that's probably not the highest likelihood thing, but it's one possibility.
Next question is from Brendan McGarry of Bloomberg News. Your line is open.
Thanks for taking the question. Just to recap, my questions were answered, but just to reiterate, best case scenario, docking could occur tomorrow?
Let's see. I think it's more likely that Sunday is possibly an option. When we do this, it turns out usually, and again, we'll have to go back and look, so we left before we got a chance to have a long discussion about it, but typically, because of the orbit the ISS is in, there's a 24-hour kind of phase repeat thing that goes on pretty close, and so we can do 24-hour turnarounds and usually end up about where we were going to be the day before. So I suspect that's a possibility, and as Mr. Gerstenmaier said, and Elon as well, we also have the added need of time to make sure the system is working properly and convince ourselves that it is so. So I would say it's more likely that we probably have an option for a Sunday berthing opportunity at some point. But again, that's very preliminary.
Thank you.
The next question is from Scott Powers of Orlando Sentinel. Your line is open.
Thank you very much. I have 2 questions for Elon. First of all, clarify for me, if you could, please. Are all of these thrusters operating off the same oxidizing tank, or are they coming off separate tanks? And then the follow-up question on that is, as you're doing these firings to test the thrusters from here on out, how long will that take in terms of hours or longer?
Sure. So there's 4 sets of tanks with there's essentially 8 tanks in total, 4 fuel tanks, 4 oxidizer tanks. All fuel tanks were operating normally, but only one of 4 of the oxidizer tanks was at the right pressure. We think there may have been a blockage of some kind, or essentially stuck check valves at going from the helium pressure in tank to the oxidizer tank, and that whatever that blockage is seems to have alleviated.
So this wasn't in the oxidizer line; it was in the helium line leading to that.
Correct. Yeah.
And then the question on how long do you think the testing and shakeout will be for these thrusters?
I think we'll know pretty soon if they're operating as they should. I can say right now there are 5 thrusters on pod 1, 4 thrusters on pod 4, and all of those are behaving exactly as we would expect them to. The next thing we're going to do is try to enable the thrusters on pod 2 and then pod 3, and I expect because the issue is really upstream even of the oxidizer tank. It's not the thrusters per se, but rather the pressure leading to the oxidizer tank. So as that issue is resolved, I expect the thrusters to operate normally.
And so this would be a matter of an hour or 2. You'll know for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll give it to Kelly for our last question here by phone.
The last question is from Mark Carreau of Aviation Week and Space Technology. Your line is open.
Thank you. If the checkout goes well, even on a rough time frame, when would you be making the first in the series of maneuvers? And I'm wondering too if you could address how long you could stay in the current orbit without deorbiting, worst case.
Well, the first maneuver that we're going to do is called the co-elliptic burn, and that's basically to raise the perigee of the Dragon spacecraft. So it'll go from a perigee of 200 kilometers to probably 250 to 300 kilometers, and that burn is important so that we don't see the orbit decay rapidly. Because if we left it at this orbit without raising perigee, it would re-enter within a day or 2. So that's the first thing that will occur, and then subsequent. Once we do that burn, we've got a lot of time to think about what to do next. So we're going to do that burn fairly soon, and then sit down with NASA and figure out the game plan for approaching the space station and making sure everything is good.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, unfortunately, that's all the time we have with our speakers today, so we're going to have to go ahead and wrap this up. You can continue to follow the mission and news about it on following SpaceX and NASA's social media sites, and you can find out more about that at SpaceX.com and NASA.gov/connect. And of course, continue to follow more updates just on the website, SpaceX.com and www.nasa.gov/station. So that's going to do it, and thank you for joining. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Rory.